What's going on, people? You already know what time it is, man. Once again, it's your guys from A Puff a Minute bringing you another Cigars and Conversations. Now, I want you guys to sit in your seats and get ready because we have a real special episode for you tonight. Sitting to my right is Mr. James Orr, movie producer extraordinaire, all right? And he's joining us today because he's going to talk about one of his passion projects, okay? And that passion project is a documentary that he just completed down in Cuba, right? And it's called Cuba, the Heart and Soul of Cigars.
Heart and soul of Cuba.
The heart and soul of Cuba. I'll get it right before this episode is out, y'all. Now, also, right, on your resume, you've done some other works that we're familiar with, right? So there was, I'm told, 3 Men and a Baby, okay? And also Sister Act 2, right? And then there's a couple other passion projects that you got out there, too. But before we get started, first of all, I want to say welcome to you, James. It's an honor to have you on with us today, all right? And we're definitely looking forward to spending some time and hear more about this, this cigar classic that you just completed.
But yeah, you know how we start the show, man. I think we got to do as we do anyway. I know we got a special guest, but we would be remiss if we didn't tell everybody what we were smoking today. Yeah. So, so I'll kick it off, man. So I'm smoking this nice Perdomo. I've grown very fond of this cigar over the last few years. So this is the Perdomo Champagne Edition, the 10th anniversary edition. So this joint is actually Ecuadorian wrapper, Nicaraguan filler, Nicaraguan binder. So, it fits my flavor palette. But I've been smoking a lot of Maduros lately, and I was like, I wanted something a little bit lighter this morning, a little bit more mild in flavor, instead of some of the full body stuff I've been smoking on.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll talk about what I got right here. Okay. So I really wanted to come on and smoke a Cuban today, right? Now, I emancipated a couple Cubans, right, from my son-in-law, right, when I was in Georgia. He had them in a desktop humidor with no humidification. They were dead beyond dead. I tried to bring them back to life. I got a Hoya de Monterrey number 2 over there, right? I got another Romeo and Juliet over there, Petite over there. But, man, they're just not ready yet. I got to put them back in the box, man. So today I'm going with this Cohiba Black. Okay, mild to medium body Cohiba stick. The black has got the Connecticut broadleaf, right, on it as well. And the filler is, it's a Dominican Piloto Cubano. I'm sorry. Let me get it right because I got the expert sitting next to me, right? And the binder is that, right? And the filler is actually that same Dominican Piloto Cubano with Mexican as well, right? So again, it's a very it's kind of got the cocoa hints and some of that chocolatey flavor, things of that nature, man. But it's a nice mild to medium stick for the morning time. James, I know that you're not smoking what you would normally probably smoke. That's just a stick that I handed you, right? So that is the Arrival, right? That was the proprietor of that brand was here with us last weekend. We had a great time hanging out with him. Another fine stick, man. It's kind of new that's out there, so that's something that you're gonna have to maybe go and ask. It's in select outlets right now, but you may want to ask, your current brick and mortar if they carry that, or maybe to get that so you can get that a shot as well. Okay. All right. So we got that part out.
We got it out.
We good. All right. So again, normally we get together just to give you the how this flows, right? There are no rules on A Puff a Minute, okay? There's no rules, man. We just have cigars and conversations as we would normally if we were just sitting in the lounge, man. You know what I'm saying? Smoking a cigar with some friends and chopping it up, all right? So we welcome you, and we definitely want to hear more about the documentary, man. So let us know.
Let me give you the journey of how the documentary got made. I've been smoking cigars hardcore since 1985, and as a cigar lover, the mecca, the magic, the Shangri-La of cigars is Cuba.
Yes,
for all of us.
Exactly.
And of course, there's always been problems going to Cuba to visit, but I managed to find a kind of a way through Mexico, and we can talk about that way if you want later on, to go to Cuba. And the first time I went to Cuba was 1995. Okay. And I was going pretty well every year or every other year from then. because I loved Havana, I loved cigars. You go there with your buddies, and you're literally smoking minimum 4 cigars a day.
Wow.
You smoke first thing in the morning at the coffee. You smoke after lunch. You smoke a cigar mid-afternoon with a drink, and then you smoke one after dinner.
Right.
So, and that's minimum.
Yeah.
Because cigars are everywhere. They're gorgeous. They're fabulous. So why not? Now I'm going to Cuba and I'm loving this, and I'm thinking, man, this is such a beautiful place. There's so many smokers around the world who never get to Cuba, don't really know the culture of cigars firsthand.
Yeah.
And I'm a filmmaker, so I said, well, there's got to be a documentary out there somewhere on Cuban cigars. So I did my deep dive to find the documentary on Cuban cigars.
Sure.
There was none. No, there was none. There was yeah, exactly. So years pass. I've now been to Cuba probably 15 times in the last 20, 25 years. And finally, I realized, because I'm a filmmaker, Hollywood filmmaker, I've done a lot of movies and for money. This was a passion project. It was never about money. It was always just about the love and the passion for the product.
And the Puff community, we identify with passion projects.
Well, true. They're never about buying the next Mercedes. They're all about just indulging yourself in the things that you love.
Exactly.
So myself and my partner in this movie, who is actually in it, the host of the movie, is James Suckling. And Suckling was, up until 2010, the Cuban correspondent for the Cigar Aficionado. So he was the guy for the Cigar Aficionado who went to Cuba, tasted Cuban cigars, rated Cuban cigars, brought back the information, put it in the magazine for all. I mean, I don't know if you remember, in the 90s, there was a Cigar Aficionado with Fidel on the cover.
Okay.
I remember that.
Yeah. Fidel was on the cover. Yeah. Well, the two people who went to Cuba to interview Fidel were James Suckling and the publisher of Cigar Aficionado, Marvin Shanken.
Right.
Okay.
So my boy Suckling is one of the few people I've ever known in the world who actually sat for 2 or 3 or 4 hours with Fidel.
Wow.
And by the way, if you want a little anecdote, because we're just shooting here, because Fidel was famous for doing this, and they put him on the cover, it was a big deal. It was very positive about Fidel. Fidel gave both Suckling and Shanken a humidor full of Cuban cigars.
Wow.
And he signed the top.
Did he?
Wow.
So jump ahead, Fidel dies.
Yes. Oh my.
Wait, let me tell you. You know where I'm going, right?
Where you going?
Yeah. So I say to Suckling, you still got that humidor? He goes, oh yeah, I still got that humidor. What are you, crazy? Of course I got the humidor. I said, did you smoke any of the cigars? He said, no, they're all in there.
Wow.
I said, do you know how much that's worth? Fidel's dead, and you have a humidor full of Cuban cigars signed by Fidel that he handed you.
Right.
He said, yeah, I know. I've been offered $200,000 for it.
Wow.
And you know what I said? Don't sell it.
Right.
It's a piece of living global history, let alone cigar history.
Correct.
And so he still has it.
Wow.
Suckling still has that humidor.
Suckling's a better man than me, because I would have smoked every one of them.
Well, you're right. All the cigars would have been tempting, going, hey, hi, we're here. Why aren't you smoking us, right? So anyway, he still got that. So the Suckling is the real deal.
Okay.
So he and I both agree, how come there's no documentary? There's a market, there's an audience. So we literally scraped together a very small amount of money, mostly just practical getting there and stuff.
Right.
And what we did was, we had 2 cameras. I was on one camera. I directed it and wrote the documentary. I was on one camera, and we hired a Cuban cameraman.
Okay.
So there was the 2 of us.
Sure.
And we ran around all over Havana because of the Cigar Aficionado and Suckling's Cache in Havana, we had access that you wouldn't normally get. We went to the Cohiba factory.
Wow.
No one goes there. You can't go there.
Yeah.
It's not open. So we went to the Cohiba factory. We got to film everywhere. We went to Pinar del Rio, which is where they grow tobacco. All the great tobacco is grown there. So we had amazing access, and we were running around shooting and putting this together, and I'm putting it all together in my head. Just as a side anecdote about access, we had access to everything except one part of the cigar making process.
Really?
They wouldn't let us anywhere near.
Which one is that?
The blending room.
Ah.
In the blending, in the blending room is where the master blenders.
Right.
What they do is they make the stacks of tobacco that the rollers get.
Right.
And those stacks are literally put together like you would cook food.
Okay.
Different styles of wrapper, different styles of binder and filler, different colors, different strengths. And those become, this is the Monte Cristo blend, this is the Romeo and Juliet blend, this is the Cohiba blend.
Wow.
And those master blenders are the only ones who know the menu, who know the recipe, I mean.
Yeah.
Right? So they said, you can shoot anywhere, you cannot shoot in there.
Makes sense.
Because obviously that's, closely held reality.
Yeah.
But we had access to everything else. So we ran around for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Shot everything, and the whole premise of the documentary was, why are Cuban cigars so mythical and so amazing? We have to find out why. We have to go on a journey, find out what makes Cuban cigars magic.
Exactly.
So it's a journey story, and in the documentary. So the documentary takes the viewer, some history, but mostly it's from seed, literally planting, all the way through every step of the process, all the way to the end of the line of rolling to putting them in boxes and shipping them out. Okay. So when you see the documentary, it's about 55 minutes. You, first of all, even hardcore smokers learn shit they didn't know.
Love it.
Because you're seeing the minutia of the process of Cuban cigars and why it's so unique. I mean, they still plow the fields with oxen.
Wow.
Oh, because they don't have the machines.
Really?
They don't have them. You can't get the machines to do it. So still to this day, there's guys out there with oxen pulling and plowing the fields before they plant.
Yeah.
So it's like you look at this and go, I am in the past. This is classic reality, right?
Yeah.
So everybody who's ever seen the documentary says, I know more about cigars than I ever knew before. I understand why they're so precious and so expensive, because you see how much goes into them. Right. It's the last handmade product maybe in the world that's completely handmade from beginning to end. There's virtually no machines. Right. Virtually no machines. And you also understand why Cuban cigars are as magical and mythical and wonderful as they are. So we finished the documentary. Suckling is in it. He's kind of the guy going on the journey, talking to the audience, saying, come with me, we're going to find out. Sure. And now, to this day, we started with there was no Cuban documentary. To this day, it's the only documentary on Cuban cigars.
I love it.
That exists.
I love it. Can you grab the mic for a second? So, it's funny that you talked about the mythical side of Cuban cigar making, right? So, to my knowledge, the first people to manufacture cigars on a large scale, right, were the Spaniards that set up the factories in Cuba, right, back in like 1500s or something, man, 1592 or something like that when they first started. But there's a lot of myths and rumors that have circulated, right, since that time as to why the Cuban cigars are so coveted and so good. Even to the point where people were saying things like, the cigars were rolled on the thighs of, 1,000 thighs of virgins and things of that nature, right? Total myth, I know, exactly, right? But it sounds good, and I don't mind picturing it. But but anyway, when you hear things like that, right? And of course, like you mentioned in the beginning, right, with access being restricted due to embargoes and communist regimes and things of that nature, it makes it hard. It was hard, right, for Americans to get their hands on Cuban cigars. I started smoking Cubans when I was, doing some consultation over in Europe for a while, over in Germany and France and things like that. They were easy access, right? So that's where I started smoking Cubans. But at the end of the day, when we get down to where we are today, is the process is still the same. It hasn't changed in hundreds of years, right? From the original process to now, right? It hasn't changed. But is the quality still there, right? Because we've heard things such as, that they've been kind of rushing things through production, right? In order to, make money, right? Because the company is so economically depressed right now, right? So your rollers need money, your growers, your blenders. So they've been pushing things out a little bit early. I don't know if that's actually the case because, like I said, it's very difficult for us to get our hands on them. But how would you compare today's process, right, compared to, how it began in the beginning? So you can grab Jay's mic too. So yeah.
There's a number of questions in there, all interesting that I want to touch on. You were talking about the history of tobacco.
Yes.
And Cuba, etc. I'm going to give you a couple of anecdotes that are good anecdotes, and they're not in the movie, so this is actually additional. Tobacco was unknown in Europe.
Yes.
And when the explorers came to North America, they discovered a number of things that Europe had never seen, like chocolate and coffee,
yes,
and tobacco. And they brought them back.
Okay.
And they became fashionable,
yes,
and successful in Europe, particularly for the aristocracy, people who had money.
Yes.
So the discovery of tobacco was Cuba and the Cohiba Indians, which is obviously the source of the name Cohiba. And when the explorers came, they saw Indians who were smoking these leaves that were loosely bound together, but almost, like you could shake them.
Sure.
And they would smoke them for ceremony and etc. And they saw them smoking these, essentially, vegetation.
Sure.
And they wondered, well, what are they doing? And they sort of smelt the aromas and participated and said, well, this is kind of nice. So they started bringing back, they decided, because it was good business,
sure,
to bring back this product to Europe. But you couldn't really, on a long journey across the Atlantic Ocean, bring back these loose leaves. So they got the Indians to sort of put them together in something very crude, but as close to this in a crude way as they could.
Sure.
And they bundled them. They literally tied them into bundles. And they brought them back on the ships.
Okay.
They were a sensation.
Wow.
Smoking these kind of loosely rolled cigars.
Mm-hmm.
And there were problems that were commercial. One was in the bundles on the boats, there would be damage.
Okay.
Because they would move around, they would bounce up and down in the waves, and they'd lose bundles.
Sure, yeah.
So when they came back to get more, they said, could we take these and put them in something to protect them?
Okay.
And they created the box.
Really? Okay.
To protect them.
Is that right?
On the trip across the Atlantic.
Wow. Okay.
So that's where the box came into. It was
sure.
also crudely done, but it was hard and protective.
Sure.
So the box would bounce around, but this wouldn't be destroyed.
Okay.
So now that worked. Good business.
Sure.
Now the aristocracy in those days wore white gloves.
Okay.
Because it was fashionable.
Right.
And they started complaining about the fact that their white gloves were turning brown because they were holding them in their hands. So then, wait a minute, you're ahead of me, right?
That's good.
And so are the viewers. So they come back for more.
Sure.
They say, is there a way we could just put a piece of paper around here so the white gloves don't get brown?
I love it.
And they created the band.
Wow.
But it was just a piece of paper to protect the gloves. It wasn't a brand.
Yeah.
And that banned for white gloves. Thank you, Great Britain, because that's where it was. You know, those aristocratic snots who don't want to get soiled. Is why there is a ban to this day on
How about that?
cigars.
How about that?
Which, of course, became a branding thing, but
Sure.
But that's why it's there, and that's why it's there
Right
where
there.
it is,
Exactly.
as opposed to at the bottom or the middle. I mean, I've always wondered why, if it's just a brand, if it's just about say, hey, I'm smoking this, you could put it anywhere.
Exactly.
But you put it there because that's where the gloves were.
That's fascinating.
So this is not in the movie, by the way. This is
Hey, you guys are getting the extra stuff right now, man. Yeah.
So obviously, cigars were a sensation. Now, and then they obviously got better and better and rolled them tighter and more selection, and it was less crude.
Sure.
Now, the other question I think you were touching on was the inconsistency of Cuban cigars.
Yes.
It's a real problem.
Okay.
It's real. And part of the reason is what you alluded to, which was when Cuban cigars exploded in the 90s.
Yes.
And they went from, I don't know, I'm just picking numbers to make a point, but they went from making 2 million cigars a year to making 20 million cigars a year.
Sure.
Because the demand was there.
Uh-huh.
It's like anything. The more than you make of something, the quality is affected by virtue of the quantity.
Okay.
So that's been true since the cigar boom in the 90s. But the other thing that happens is tobacco is like grapes and wine. There are good vintages and there are bad vintages.
I love that.
You know what happens? You have a bad season, you don't have enough tobacco.
Sure.
Or the tobacco quality is not as high as you want.
Yeah.
But that doesn't stop the Cubans from making cigars.
Correct.
They need money.
Exactly.
Because it's a poor country, so they keep making them good season or bad season.
Yeah.
So for years, the Cuban cigars had a code on the box. Mm-hmm. You've seen the code; it's a stamp.
Yes.
On the bottom of the box. And there used to be.
I've never had a box of Cubans, but yeah, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
I'll roll in the same circles as you.
Well, in 1995, when I first went there, you would go to a store and you would turn the box over, and there would be a code, but it was a secret code.
Uh-huh.
It was just kind of letters, and only when you learned how to decode it, which just was a matter of really asking, it told you the year the cigars were made.
Okay.
Now, to this, they changed that to, and now actually you turn it over in Cuba, and it actually says February 2010.
Understood. Right.
But in those days, it was a secret code.
Got you.
But now actually they put the actual date. So you can look at a box and go, well, this is from 2010, and if you know the inside reality of that crop or that vintage,
yes,
you can say, 10 was not a good year.
Not a good year.
So these cigars are probably going to be okay.
Right.
But then the opposite is true too. You know that 2011 was spectacular.
Yes.
And these cigars are going to be the best cigars you ever smoked.
Right.
So it's tricky. I've smoked the best cigars of my life have been Cuban, and some of the worst cigars in my life have been Cuban.
Wow.
And so it's up and down, and you really don't know, particularly in America, when you get them secondhand on the aftermarket, underground market, black market. There's a couple of things you don't know. You don't know what the vintage is and how good it is until you start smoking it, and by then it's too late because you paid. And the other thing is fakes. You want to talk about fakes? Let me tell you about fakes. No, fake.
Everybody who's ever been to a beach in the Dominican Republic and bought some Cuban cigars, you did not buy Cuban cigars.
I got a great fake story. And not in the movie.
Yeah.
This is a great story. So in 1995, the first time I go there, I stay at the Cohiba Hotel. There's a hotel called the Cohiba Hotel.
Okay.
And it's one of those hotels in Cuba at the time when only tourists could come in and out. Cubans could never come in. There was a guy at the door 24 hours.
Sure.
And if it was a Cuban, they would not let him come in the
hotel.
Only foreigners.
Sure.
So I was fascinated by this whole idea of fake Cubans.
Sure.
Particularly how they were made, where they came from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what I did know before I learned what I'm going to tell you is that most fake Cubans actually come from Cuba.
Is that right?
Yeah, everybody thinks they come from Mexico.
I was of that impression myself.
They don't.
Wow.
Fake Cubans are Cubans. They're not factory cigars.
Got you.
They're what's called farm cigars.
Got you.
So they are Cuban.
Wow.
They're not rolled properly. They're not rolled by the best rollers. They don't smoke properly. They're not aged properly.
Gotcha.
But they still are Cuban. But they're not factory cigars.
Gotcha.
So when people say fake Cubans, what they mean is non-factory Cubans.
No quality control.
Right. So exactly,
Okay.
quality control.
Yep.
So I knew that.
Okay.
So outside the Cuba hotel was a square, big square, and Cubans, mostly young Cubans, would hang out there all day.
Okay.
And I saw it from my window, and there's a lot of them out there. So Mr. Brave Guy decides, I'm going to go out there at 2 in the afternoon
Sure.
into the square, and immediately I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get surrounded.
Absolutely.
Because
yeah.
I'm obviously an American.
Yeah.
So I walk out there smoking a Cohiba Robusto in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm literally a target, but I'm doing it on purpose. So sure enough, I go out there 2 o'clock, and I'm smoking a cigar. I'm looking as American as I can.
Sure.
And I get surrounded by these teenage, early 20s Cuban hustlers.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what's going to happen.
Sure.
So they go, Cigaro, Cigaro, Senor, Cigaro, Cigaro. And I go, I don't speak that much Spanish. So
Sure.
I said, sí, Cigaro, Cigaro. And they go, everybody's pulling at me and getting my attention.
Sure.
And so I said, I don't know why, but I picked one kid. And I said, so what do you got? He goes, what do you want?
Uh-huh.
So in my head, and I know that I'm going to get faked. I'm doing this on purpose. So I say to him, the easiest, probably best known, largest production cigar.
Sure.
I say, Romeo y Julieta Churchill.
Sure.
I said, do you have it? Kid goes, sí, señor. I go, okay,
Yeah.
I'm in. Now I think he's going to go to a bag somewhere, pull it out, and come over.
Uh-huh.
No, that's not what happened.
Really?
No. So I say, he goes, sí, señor. And I go, okay, where is it? He goes, I go, okay. Now he starts walking out of the square.
Really?
And he keeps doing this. And of course, idiot that I am, I follow this kid. Now he takes me way into the barrio. Way into the barrio, away from the hotel, away from the square. I'm walking down these streets where there's sewage in the streets. All the buildings are these cinder block buildings with no doors. They just have like curtains.
Not to interrupt, but you kept following him.
I kept following him.
I would have loved you in New York City in the 80s.
Well, so I mean, I'm either stupid or I'm brave. I don't know. But and he keeps going, senor. And I keep following this kid.
Mm-hmm.
So he finally gets to one of these cinder block places with a curtain.
Okay.
And he goes, "Come on in." I'm surprised I'm still sitting here.
Wow.
So I go in. There's 2 rooms in this. One is the front room with a kitchen and a table. And there's an old man sitting at the table. Classic, like Cuban picture almost, one of these wizened old guys. And then there's a bedroom in the back.
Okay.
So he goes like this and into the bedroom. I go into the bedroom, and sure enough, he comes up with a box of Romeo and Julieta Churchills.
Nice.
So I look at the box, and everything looks good.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the secret of picking fakes, by the way, is not to look at the cigars. It's to look at the packaging.
Gotcha.
And the reason that's true is that they spend more time making the cigars look right than they do the packaging.
Right.
Because they're after marks.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody looks at the cigars. Oh, they look what a great color and blah blah blah.
Sure.
And they forget to look at how the pack. So I'm doing all this. I'm looking at the package. Then I open them.
Okay.
Not only are they Romeo and Juliet Churchills, they're tubos.
What?
It's tubos.
Oh my goodness!
Like I'm going.
They put some money into theirs.
Yeah, exactly. Tubos. The aluminum tube.
Yeah.
I'm going. Well, I'm looking at the kid. He goes, he's doing what it is, right? And I'm looking at it. So I said, "Can I, unscrew one of the tubes and look at the cigars?" He goes, "See." So I take one of the cigars out. I'm inside this place. Not a lot of light in there.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this cigar, and it's dark.
Uh-huh.
So I said, "Can I go outside and look at this in the sun?"
Yeah.
So he goes, "Yeah, go." So he comes outside, and I'm now looking at the cigar in the sun. Right? It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so there's lots of light. And the cigar looks fabulous.
Wow.
I mean, it's fabulous. and I'm looking at the wrapper and the cap, because the cap is usually a giveaway.
Yes.
And I'm looking at this. I'm looking at how it's cut.
Uh-huh.
That they're all even and not uneven at the bottom.
Sure.
You know, because sometimes if there's like even a centimeter, that's not factory.
Right,
Factories are like laser line.
Right.
And I'm looking at that and I'm going, damn, fucking cigars look great.
Yeah.
So I go, okay, how much for the box? He goes, $40.
Stop playing.
I swear to God. He goes, $40. I go, $40? For what? For the box.
Wow.
No, senor, for the box. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
I take out $40. Now, by the way, $40 is probably a month's income
Absolutely.
for these kinds of families, right?
Sure, sure.
So I'm sort of happy
Yeah.
that I'm giving them $40
Yeah.
in general.
Right.
So I take up my $40. He goes, adios amigo, right? Now I take the box and I walk back through the barrio, back to the Cohiba Hotel.
Yeah.
And the Cohiba Hotel, because of what it is, you can actually smoke in your room.
Okay.
Because it's Havana.
Yeah.
So I go back, immediately I open up, I start smoking the cigars. I want to find out what's going on.
Sure.
I go through 10 cigars.
Wow.
Not smoking the whole cigar, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Smoking, an inch or so of each of the 10.
Okay.
They all suck.
Wow.
They don't draw.
Okay.
They're a little green in flavor and bitter
Got you.
and sour and too much ammonia, which just means they weren't fermented properly. Because
Exactly.
ammonia is a byproduct of fermentation of tobacco.
Yes.
And I realized everything was perfect about this box
Yeah.
except the actual cigar.
Yes.
They were
Yes.
unsmokable.
Wow.
So it was a $40 lesson.
Yes.
Not a bad
Yeah, that's not bad.
Class,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a masterclass on fake Cubans, how perfect they can be,
Wow.
but they don't smoke.
Yeah.
Wow.
Everything was perfect. The band, the aluminum tubes, how they get this stuff.
Right, right.
Anyway, so that was my biggest lesson about fake Cubans and the fact that they're there and they mostly come from Cuba. That was 1995.
Okay.
And over the years I've gotten even better about it. What was the other question you asked about?
Actually, I'm gonna give you another question, and then I'm gonna turn it to Jay for one. And if you guys are watching us on live, man, I know I've been pretty much maybe ignoring some of you guys because this has been so fascinating. But if you have a question for James, please go ahead and put it in the live, and we'll be sure to ask it for you. But what I wanted to ask, based on that last story that you just told us, what do you think would have happened if you had taken those perfectly packaged fakes, right, and took them and put them in your box and had your own sort of ainamiento process for those and let them, age and ferment a little bit on their own? Do you think it would have gotten any better, or is it just, it's a fake, it's bad, and there's no getting around it?
It wouldn't have gotten better. The problem with the fakes is non-factory cigars, and you said it, don't have the quality control. So those cigars would never have passed even the first level of quality control.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, the tobacco wasn't fermented and processed properly.
Yeah.
So it was a little off and a little sour. As I said, there was residual ammonia, which is horrible.
Yeah.
The other thing is whoever rolled these cigars, because some of them were so tight you couldn't. You're like
drawing them. Yeah.
Your mouth hurt from trying to get the smoke out, and
Wow.
I was literally like, putting a pin in there. I was doing everything I could to get them to smoke.
Sure.
I wanted to find, seriously, I would have been happy for $40. I would have been happy to find one good smoke.
I understand.
And I would have said,
Yeah.
I won.
Yeah.
40 bucks is, actually maybe two is at that time. But they were all unsmokable, which
Wow.
means that whoever made them and whatever farm out in the middle of nowhere, they'd used crappy tobacco,
Yeah.
and whoever rolled it wasn't a trained roller.
Okay.
And on top of that, there was no one going, we're not sending that out because it's bad, no quality control.
Sure,
It's just
sure.
bad. You can't sell these because we have a reputation. So the whole key to why factory cigars are so good is because they get the best tobacco, they age it properly, they ferment it properly, they roll it. They have the best rollers, obviously in the country,
Uh-huh.
who make practically no money. And who, by the way, are, everybody asks this question since I'm thinking about it, because I was in the factory shooting with the rollers all galore, and everybody says, how many cigars does a roller make a day?
Oh, sure, yeah.
What's the average? And they have to hit a mark, otherwise they get fired.
Yeah, they have a quota.
Yeah, they get fired. If they don't roll in a certain work day, and that many or more, they're out. So they have to roll a minimum of 100 cigars a day.
Wow.
And if they go below that, you might get a probation, and someone says you got to pick it up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gone.
Wow.
So, but I watched them and filmed them. I mean, they're experts. They're picking the tobacco, and they're making sure that it's rolled right, and it'll draw.
Sure.
And they have these drawing machines where they test the cigars that literally pull air through them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, with a meter.
Uh-huh.
To resistance meter.
Sure.
So they don't do this with every cigar, but they like pick pieces to test intermittently.
Sure.
And they literally put the cigar in, they cut it, they put it in, and then they just this vacuum thing pulls air through, and then there's a meter.
Okay.
And if the meter is too tight, then the cigar gets dumped.
Nice.
So that's part of the quality control. It's pretty primitive, but it still works.
Okay.
But that's not what's happening on the farm. They're not doing anything.
No, none of that. Right.
It's all cosmetic. As long as the cigars look good and the box looks pretty good, some idiot's going to buy it.
Oh, yeah.
So, and here's the other thing about people who buy cigars, as you say, on the beach in Dominican or beach in Puerto Vallarta or something, is there's the lemon. Do you know the lemon psychology? When you buy something that's crappy and you paid money for it, you will not acknowledge that you made a mistake. So you'll be sitting there smoking a crappy cigar going, yeah, this is a great Cuban. Yeah. I ain't admitting that this is shit because I paid like $300 for this box.
Exactly.
And so I've seen so many people buy fakes and go, yeah, man, I'm smoking a Cuban. It's really good. And I'm going, oh, you're such a douchebag.
And then they try to pass them off on their buddies.
They go,
hey, I'm giving you a Cuban.
Yeah. I'm your friend for life, dude.
Exactly.
I'm giving you a Cuban. They're smoking this crappy sour cigar. They go, yeah, pretty good. Or the worst one is you give them a Cuban. How about this? You give them a Cuban. It's a bad cigar, and then they go, those Cubans aren't walk away. Go, I don't think Cubans. I think it's all bullshit.
Yeah, I don't like Cuban cigars.
That's all bullshit because I smoked this Cuban. It was horrible. I couldn't draw. Yeah. And that's because you smoke a real Cuban.
Right.
That screws them up for life.
That's true.
Anyway,
that's true.
Crazy but true.
You mentioned Pinar del Rio earlier, which is, I guess, the premier region, right, down in Cuba. And, and I like one of the analogies that you used a little earlier when you likened it to wine growing, right? So, in essence, it's kind of like Napa Valley, right, for us, right, on the West Coast or what have you, Napa Valley as compared to, right? So, again, like, as you said, you can have good vintages, right? Or you can have some that are not so good, but at the same time, it's still coming from, the best place in the world where it comes to cigars. And Pinar del Rio is still the region that every other cigar region is trying to emulate. So yeah,
that's completely true. Pinar del Rio is a region. It's about 2 hours outside of Havana. On a very bad, bumpy road, by the way. But when you get out there, it's some kind of Shangri-La. I mean, it's the tobacco's leaves and the stalks are magnificent. They're tall. The leaves are literally as long as your arm. Tobacco leaves, and I put one on, and they're that long. They're amazing. And when it's in the this is in the documentary when they harvest.
Yes.
These guys go through and pull the leaves off really fast because they have to do it fast. But they do it in levels on the stalk. So they pick the bottom leaves. They go through and pick the bottom leaves first. Then they go through again and pick the next level. And then they go all the way to the top. But they do a run for each level because each level has a different level of nicotine because of sun.
Yeah.
So the top has more sun.
The Ligero.
Right. The Ligero is on the top. Yeah. So they have to keep it separate. It's not like they take it all down and then it's in piles of levels. So when the blender is pulling different leaves for the blending, they know where it came from on the stock. And it's very, it's in the documentary, you'll see these guys doing it when you see the show. And they go through so fast, and they're pulling this stuff off, and then they pile it at the end of the row, and then they go through again and pick it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, people think that there's different tobacco.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
Gotcha.
It's just different levels of the stock and different sun exposure. That makes it all different. The other thing, unlike grapes, because I think there's a lot of comparison between grape growing and tobacco growing. But there's a big difference.
Which is?
Well, with grapes, the stock stays. And each year you pick the grapes, but you're going to have stocks that are 20 years old, 50. In some cases, I've seen 100-year-old grapevines. That's not what tobacco is. When they pick the leaves, they plow all of the stalks out, and they start again with seedlings.
Nice.
So each cycle starts from a seed, grows, and it grows fast because it's essentially a weed. It grows really fast. Once they harvest, all gone, start again.
Wow.
Nothing stays.
Really?
Yeah. Start again.
Interesting.
Plant, grow, harvest, plow.
Right.
And you'll see it in the documentary how it works.
Okay.
So that's a big difference between grapes and
I can imagine. Jay, I know, man, we've been kind of monopolizing right here, brother. So, what do you?
Just for me, I think it would help too with the viewers just to add a little more context to the conversation. You talked about going to Cuba in '95. You talked about a period in 2010 and what have you. So, first of all, what year was the documentary actually filmed?
Good question.
As far as from a context standpoint, because we know a lot has changed over time. What year did you guys go down and actually film it? And another thing I think for our viewers that we haven't really talked about yet is what platforms can they go and find the film? So,
great questions. We shot the documentary in 2012, and literally we were there for the harvest. And the harvest, which is another actually interesting comment, is when do they actually harvest the tobacco? It's in March. So we were there for this period in March, running around shooting. So, and we did it in 12. It existed for 10 years, but it's, as I say, it's still the only comprehensive Cuban cigar documentary. The Cubans, by the way, and I'm going to fill in a few things in between there, the Cubans themselves, when they saw the documentary, they loved it. And each year there's a cigar festival at the end of February, I think, but each year called the Habanos Festival. And people come from all over the world. It's a week-long festival. It's a very big deal, and it's really expensive, but it's all for foreigners. And it's all put on by Habanos, which is the government organization that owns all the cigars, all the tobacco fields, everything, all the factories. And they premiere new blends each year, and it's a big deal. They have galas and showgirls and music and stuff. And then all these guys from all over the world who are buyers, usually in the business, are smoking the new blends, the new cigars. It's a big deal. And so in the year after we did the documentary, the Habanos people loved the documentary so much, they put it into the Habanos Festival as a part of the festival. It's a big screening. I was there with Suckling. We did a Q&A afterwards, on a panel. It was part of the program. I was there as a VIP in the catalog and the whole thing. So they were delighted, because it's essentially marketing promotion for them, but also they were really, really happy about how we captured the essence of Cuban cigars. In fact, another interesting story, the Cuban ambassador to Mexico was there, and he saw the movie, and he came up to me and Suckling and said, I can't believe that it took two Americans to capture the essence of Cuban cigars. Wow. He said to us, how did you guys, who aren't Cuban, get this? And the answer, well, we were obviously happy that he said that, but the answer was, well, because we are, I told him this. I said, two reasons. One is we're passionate about cigars, so we love it, and it came from the heart. That's why it's called the heart and soul of Cuba. And I said, number two, Ambassador, I said, sometimes someone on the outside can see things that people on the inside can't. And he went, yes, I understand that. Because, yes, I get that. That's true in life. If you're in it, you don't see what you do if you're outside seeing the whole.
Yeah.
So that happened a year after we did it. It was a big deal. What was your second question? There was something about...
You can find them.
Oh, good one. Yes, it's online. It's on YouTube. Cigars, the Heart and Soul of Cuba. But the quality on YouTube in general about video is what they do is they lower the quality so everybody can get it, stream it, and it's not. It doesn't. So the quality's okay, but the best quality, and this is another thing that all of your viewers should do. Suckling and I have a website called HavanaInsider.com.
Love it.
And HavanaInsider.com we set up shortly after we did the documentary for this purpose. Do you remember when Obama was in office and they opened it up and people started going a lot? Well, Americans would go there and they would be helpless. They wouldn't know what to do. They wouldn't know where to go. They wouldn't know where to stay, where to eat, where to change money, all these basic things. So we set up Havana Insider to answer all those questions. Restaurant reviews, hotel reviews, rum reviews. Here's how you do it. Here's where you change money. Here's how it works. So people could go online, look at this stuff, and then not get there and be helpless. So we did that as a separate kind of thing. But we put the movie on there.
Okay.
So if you go to HavanaInsider.com, the movie's there. You can stream it for free, and the quality is much higher than YouTube. So when people say, where can I see it? Can I look at it on YouTube? I go, well, if you have to, but you'll get a better product.
Absolutely.
On HavanaInsider.com, not to mention all the other information, which is there. I mean, restaurant review, I mean, there's a lot of great restaurants in Havana.
Sure.
I mean, shockingly great. Phenomenal. And the hotels, they've been building hotels like crazy. So it's an informational place. So that I would say, and I would urge you to look at the website anyway, but if you want to see the documentary, see it on there.
That's amazing to find out, right? Because in the last, 10 years, the cigar industry just blown up. Everybody's a cigar smoker now. And to hear after 10 years, there's still only one documentary about what happens in Cuba.
Yep.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, listen, what I want to do now is... right, so you're sitting here with us today. We're at Tap and Ash, right? Social Lounge, Cigars and Libations. It is the home of a Puff a Minute right here in Las Vegas. And we're having something special that's going on Tuesday, right? So you're going to feature the film here, right? We definitely want to invite everyone else to come out and join us for that. We're going to have a pairing with Glendronach, who will be in the house as well. Glendronach Scotch, which is a very, very good Scotch, by the way, man. I once won a bottle of the 25-year, man, which was absolutely probably one of the best I've had, right? So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing the film. And there's going to be some other special things that happen that day as well, that evening as well, that I'm not going to touch upon because you got to be here to find out, right? So we're looking forward to that. What do you want to say as far as why people should be here, 7 o'clock Tuesday for that viewing?
Well, first and foremost, to see the movie and learn more about cigars than you know already. Because, by the way, I learned more about cigars when I made the movie than I knew already, and I was a hardcore cigar gangster for years before that, and I still learned.
Yes.
When you put a camera on something and you run around, you learn. So there's not a cigar smoker that I've ever shown the movie to or has ever seen the movie who hasn't come away with one or two major comments almost consistently. One is, I never knew that so much went into making cigars, and because it's in the movie, but by the time a cigar is finished and shipped and it's in your hand, it's gone through 250 hands from seed to product,
right,
over the course of its creation. So it's as handmade a product as is left on the planet. It really is, truly. Even wine isn't completely handmade. There's machines and shit. There's none of that. This is so basic.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I might have said it earlier, but they still plow using oxen,
Right.
because they don't have machines. So we're talking basic in Cuba. So you get a higher appreciation for the product. It's one thing to say I love smoking cigars, I enjoy smoking cigars, but you have a reverence when you see the documentary, a reverence for this product that you didn't have before, because you have more information about what went into it. You also, and I get this all the time, when you look at it and see how it's made, everybody goes, well, now I know why it's so expensive.
Sure.
Because there's so much that goes into this product. I mean, everybody thinks it's just, a bunch of stuff. They roll it up, they put a thing on it, they put a band on it, throw it in a box, and no. It's really complicated. There's fermentation, there's aging, there's selection, there's blending, there's color matching. They match the colors when they put them in the box. Yeah. And there's a guy, and it's in the movie. There's a guy. It's fabulous. He's got a big, huge table, and all of these cigars are on the table. And all he does is he picks the same color of wrapper so that the box is consistent. And he puts them aside, light, medium, dark, just for the cosmetics of the cigar. And I asked one of the people there, why is that so important? A cigar is a cigar. And they said something really meaningful. They said, because we know that when a cigar smoker opens the box and he looks at the cigars, that's the first experience he has with the cigars. And the consistency of the cigars is critical, that they all are the same hue.
Yeah.
And the other thing they do, and the guy who's picking the color picker is not doing this, but the women, it's all women, by the way, who put the bands on.
Okay.
It's all women. I've never
smaller fingers.
Yeah, well, and they're actually, strangely enough, more dexterous.
Really?
Yeah. So what they do is, when they put the band on, so they've got the bundles that have been color selected, so they don't have to worry about that. But what they do is they take the cigar before they put the band on it, and they do this. And what they're doing is they're looking for what they call the face of the cigar. So that the band, the center of the band, is on the face.
Wow.
And that face is the most beautiful side of the stick.
I love it.
So you'll see these women going like this. They'll find the most beautiful side. They'll put it in a holder. And then you'll see them take the band and make sure that the front of the band is right on the face.
Outstanding.
So that when it goes into the box, you're looking at all these cigar faces looking at you. Here I am. And it's all the most beautiful side of the cigar.
That's wonderful.
But that's how much detail goes into this product that you take for granted until you see it and you go, damn, look what they're doing.
Wow.
No wonder these are $30 or $40, whatever they are. That's so. The more you know, I mean, if you're passionate about anything, cars, wine, scotch, the more you know about it,
I agree.
it feeds your passion.
I love it.
And that's what the documentary does. It gives you more information for your passion.
Well, I can't wait for the documentary on Tuesday night, and you're feeding my passion, man. Just sitting here with us right now with this interview, So again, I know we got to get out of here because we're coming up on time and we're about to open up, right, and have a football Sunday here at Tap and Ash. But I want to thank you, James, for coming on, man, and being so informative, right? I know that everybody who's watching, right, is really appreciating this, man, and you kind of elevated us a little bit here at a Puff a Minute, man. So we want to definitely show our gratitude for that. It's been a wonderful session with you. And again, I want to say thank you. Cigar Banker.
Thank you. Appreciate you, James, man. It's been a pleasure. I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Give them the rundown, man. Go ahead.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
I'm glad to participate. You got a great podcast. This is all for the cigar gangsters out there who are passionate like we are.
We gotta use that cigar.
Cigar gangster.
I've been using that I've been using that for 25 years, guys. And you know what? It's yours. You can use Cigar Gangsters. Because I always go, when I'm with my buds, I always go, come on, we're Cigar Gangsters. Don't fuck with us. I mean,
that'll be the title of this episode.
I love it. That's the title, Cigar Gangsters with James Orr. I love it, man. So again, guys, don't forget, right? Cigars, the heart and soul of Cuba. Look for it. Go to what was it? HavanaInsider.com. Is that where they can also find out more about what you're doing or things of that nature? Or?
No, the Havana Insider is really focused on what's happening in Cuba, not just for interest, but if you ever are going to go there, and we can maybe the next time we'll talk about how do you go there, because there are ways to go there without getting into trouble. But for American tourists who get lost in Havana for lots of good reasons, this helps them, equips them with knowledge and where to go and where to stay and how not to get into trouble. That's the focus. But what this documentary is on there, so you can look at it anytime you want.
Cool. I tell you what, next time you go to Cuba, can you give me a heads up?
Yeah.
I need about 6 months notice to get my coins up, though. I'm just saying. All right, Cigar Banker, why don't you give them the rundown, man, so we can get out of here?
Yeah, we appreciate y'all, man. Keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate everybody that jumped on the live with us this morning. I saw Kareem, a few other our peoples on there. Appreciate you, man. Make sure to like, comment, share when you're on the live as well. Like I said, we got a great guest with us here this morning. Any questions, follow up you guys want us to do with them, we'll definitely do that as well. Please take that love over to YouTube. You heard James talk about it. The movie is on YouTube, Cigars, the Heart and Soul of Cuba. That's also on YouTube, but that's where you can also find the library episodes from A Puff a Minute. Like I said, we got a great title already. We're using the hashtag Cigar Gangsters from now on. So we appreciate y'all, man. We love you and thank you again.
Outstanding, man. Outstanding. Once again, y'all, it's been another Cigars in Conversation with A Puff a Minute. I'm your man, Cigar Mick.
It's Cigar Banker.
And we've been sitting here with Mr. James Orr, filmmaker, all right? And we want you guys to make sure that you are here on Tuesday and that you go on to the online and find that movie as well, man, because again, you can only be, more educated, in this thing of ours, as I like to say from time to time. Thanks for joining us. We love you. We'll see you next week. We out.
Peace.
Peace.